There you go.
Check 1 2 check.
Right.
Always wanted to
Okay,
do
yeah,
that,
we'll do a mic check real quick.
Okay. Yeah, can you
Okay.
hear that? Okay.
VU meter look okay here? Test or only test 1 2 3 4.
Test. Okay.
How about Doug?
Can you hear me okay, John? Test.
Use the black one. Yep.
Test.
You're
Test.
speaking
1
kind of low,
2
actually.
test. Should I get closer?
Okay.
That good right there? Okay.
Okay. Hey guys, Doug, welcome.
Thank you, Tom.
Doug has been working all morning, signing pictures and autographs and talking about space and all that stuff. He's really made a lot of friends through ham radio, and it's been really great that Doug could join us as our co-host today. And as you see, Doug can really give the prizes out. Normally I give one prize out about every hour, but you guys are just burning through them there.
I haven't. Kathy's running the show over there. I just do what she tells me. So.
All right. Hey, Doug. Let me lead into something just very quickly, and I know people have heard the story, but I talked to Doug many times, and we sent him barbecue, and Doug ate the barbecue, and he liked it so much. And when I talked to Doug on the phone, he always asked, "What about that Corky's barbecue?" or "Don't forget the barbecue." Well, I don't have any Corky's barbecue for you this year. Okay.
All right.
But I've got something else here.
Uh-oh.
I don't know if we can get this in here or not.
Oh, my goodness.
Now, on NASA, you can't accept but less than
That's right.
a $3 gift.
Yeah,
right?
$3, I think it is.
Yeah. Okay. Let me show you
So
what we
if
got.
it's homemade,
This is. Have you heard of the Rendezvous? Rendezvous.
Well,
famous.
I've heard about rendezvousing spaceships, but I haven't heard about the rendezvous probably that you're alluding to.
Okay. Well, a couple weeks ago, Prince Harry and
yes,
William.
Yes,
Yeah.
they were in Memphis.
They were in Memphis, yeah, for a wedding, and they ate at the Rendezvous. The Rendezvous is a worldwide known barbecue place. Okay.
All right.
They have a little bit different barbecue. I think it's dry rubbed or whatever instead of the Corky's like we sent you. So anyway, Rendezvous has sent us something here for you.
Oh my goodness.
And we tried to get barbecue in here, but we couldn't do it because we didn't have a way to heat it.
Okay.
But look at here, man. We got you some Rendezvous barbecue.
Barbecue popcorn. All right.
We've got. I want to ask you another thing. You're talking about your diet. Does NASA really limit you on things that you can eat?
Oh no! I mean, our actual limitation is right now is our seats in the Soyuz, the Russian Soyuz. We're limited on weight to structural weight, so you have to be below a certain weight.
Well, look, we've got different seasoning here.
Different seasonings? That's
famous
awesome.
Rendezvous seasoning. You've got barbecue sauce.
Barbecue sauce.
Let's see what
I
else
can put that to good use.
More barbecue sauce. I think there's some hot, there's some mild, and
thank you. That's really wonderful.
Right, you've even got you've got a Rendezvous T-shirt here, I think. Oh man, can you get a picture of this? Let's look at this right here.
There we go.
Yeah, can you get a picture, Tommy? All right, that's from a Rendezvous now.
1948, a Memphis tradition.
Now, the Rendezvous is actually in an alley in Memphis, right across from the Peabody Hotel.
All right,
down the
I
alley.
know the Peabody,
If you ever stay there.
The Rendezvous. Well, thank you to my good friends now at Rendezvous.
At the Rendezvous, okay.
And thank you for the popcorn and the sauce and the shirt.
Eat an hour.
And I'll probably put it away for now, so I don't want to eat it while I'm on the air because I don't want to hurt people's feelings because I get some Rendezvous popcorn and they don't. So.
You were talking about watching your weight because the Soyuz has limitations, I guess.
That's right.
No real fat people can ride in there, right?
Well, the weight limitation is 95 kilos. And so what that equates to in pounds is 209.4 pounds.
Okay.
And so as long as you're below 209.4 pounds, you could fly in the Russian Soyuz.
Now, is that naked or with your shoes on?
That's actually just with your socks on.
Okay. All right. Well, look, I saw pictures of you and the Russian cosmonaut and the lady astronaut coming down in the Soyuz.
That's right.
You guys looked really crowded in here. I mean, it looked like you had airbags all around you, and you were just
it's really cramped in there. Yeah.
Now, how long does it take you to get from orbit down to ground?
Yeah.
Once
So
you get in that little thing.
It's actually a pretty quick flight. It's not as quick as getting to space on the launch. That only takes about 8 or 9 minutes to get to outer space when you're launching in a rocket. But coming home, we actually turn around, fire like braking engines. We call it the deorbit burn. You may have heard on NASA TV, or if you're watching a landing. And then it takes only about 50 minutes because you start falling towards the Earth, and you're slowing down using the atmosphere to brake you as a braking system. And take from the moment you fire your deorbit burn to you fall and impact the Earth is about 50 minutes.
That's a pretty quick trip down.
It's a pretty quick trip, and a good portion of that in the middle is it gets kind of hot, kind of a lot of vibration, a lot of G-forces, and it's not the most comfortable place to be for about 14 or 15 minutes. Right in that middle of block of time.
So let me ask you, do you go to the bathroom before you get on that thing? I mean,
if you didn't go beforehand, you end up going during. So
during, huh? Okay.
So,
right.
But the little known, we try to keep it a secret, but I think the secret is out in the astronauts, we wear a diaper.
Do you really?
Yeah. So we actually call it a MAG, a maximum absorbency garment, just to make us feel better that we're not actually wearing a diaper, we're wearing a MAG.
If you remember 3 years ago, I asked you this question. I got to ask it again because it's kind of a funny question, and I know the viewers, they're interested in funny things. But I did see the NASA, there was a video on the toilet for the space station where it has the training toilet.
Yes.
There's a training toilet that has a camera in the bottom of the toilet. And I know you have to have a good seal and everything. What's the camera for, actually?
The camera is for aiming, practicing your target practice.
So, is that only in the test? It's not in the real environment?
Not in the real environment.
You don't have a camera in the real environment?
No, not in the real environment, no.
All right. I saw that on Larry the Cable Guy, actually.
That's actually true.
Yeah,
Larry the Cable Guy was correct on that.
Yeah. So, hey, sleeping. I mean, no gravity. You just zip yourself up in a sleeping bag and lean against the wall, or
yes, you could float all. You could float all over the space station, and so and if you fall asleep, you just kind of float there, and you may end up getting picked up in an air current, and you'd float all over the station. So we just hold ourselves stationary with essentially it looks like a sleeping bag. It's just got armholes in it, and a zipper. I kind of step inside of it, and then put your arms through, and then you just kind of hang there. Now I would pin down my sleeping bag in all four corners of my sleep station, and our sleep station's our own little private space, is about the size of an old phone booth. Now, when I say that to young school children now, they look at me as like, "What's a phone booth?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's right. We don't have very many phone booths anymore." But for the adults out there that remember phone booths, that's pretty much the size of your personal space on the space station. And for our kids that have never seen a phone booth, have only read about it in history books, it's about the size of a very small closet. And that's your personal space. And so I hooked up my sleeping bag there and just kind of floated inside of it each night.
So if you have an accident and a water bottle turns over and water bubbles go everywhere, how do you capture all that? Okay,
well actually water is really, really interesting in space. Water, when it gets loose in space, it's almost like slime. If it gloms onto something, it's got a lot of surface tension, a pretty high surface tension. So if you stuck your hand in a ball of water, it'll just kind of be like a ball of slime, like a Nickelodeon or something when you get slime. And you can't peel it off. You have to essentially capture it inside of a towel. So, and water will essentially join into a ball when it's in space.
That's cool.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, man. Well, Doug, we've got a video out there that shows time lapse. I guess it's fast time lapse of the space station going around the Earth, and you see all the lightning below and all those things, and man, it's just amazing. When I look at that, I can't can't believe what I'm seeing, man. It's got to be a tremendous feeling inside.
It's incredible. The Earth in daylight, when we're orbiting so fast that we orbit the Earth once every 90 minutes, and so every 45 minutes there's either a sunrise or sunset when we're in Earth orbit. And so I remember being outside on a spacewalk and looking at the Earth is so distracting because of its beauty. The colors are just like explosive right in front of your eyes, and then you look off kind of like an oblique angle to the Earth and you see the frightening darkness of outer space, like deep space, that you begin to realize that our world is just this explosion of color in a vast sea of darkness. And so it was very distracting when I was trying to work during my spacewalks, and so I was hopeful or wishing for the night to come so I wouldn't be distracted. I can get my work done. And then when the sun finally went down and I saw lightning bolts and fingers of lightning stretching out over hundreds of miles, and then the aurora coming in at the poles, I began to realize that our Earth is really, our planet is just a raging ball of life in the middle of this of outer space, and it's a pretty amazing view. You never really get your mind around it, but it just kind of stops you in your tracks, and it's very, very poetic, and it's very silent. There's not a lot of noise, so you can see all this going on below you, but there's no noise associated with it. So wow. It's kind of a surreal feeling.
Hey, let's talk a minute about ham radio, and you got your license just right before that you went up.
Yes, I did.
Talk to us about that a little bit again, and how you got into talking to the hams in the station. At first, you really didn't know what to do. But
yeah, exactly. I'm trying to change our philosophy on the ham radio at NASA, and before I was going to space, I was trying to learn all about the systems because I was going to be the commander of the space station. So I wanted to know, at least be knowledgeable in different areas. And we have a ham radio on board the space station. And I asked about the ham radio, and I said, well, what is it up there for? And, well, we do some educational outreach, but it's there primarily as a backup communication system. So if we lose our KU band or S band communication, we can always fall back on the ham radio as an emergency communication system we just need to be over a continent, and we have emergency contact call signs over each continent that can relay messages back to mission control. So I think I probably better know a little bit more about this ham radio. So they said, would you like to get licensed? So I said, sure. So they put me through some training there, and I took the final exam and passed my final exam. I wouldn't say with flying colors, but with colors anyway. I had enough color to pass.
Sure.
And so I got my license, and then when I went on board the station, I thought, you know what? I was there for maybe a week, and I thought I should go try out this ham radio just to see if I can make some contacts. And what I didn't realize is that we sort of went viral, didn't we, Tom?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you remember when we...
I remember.
So I just started making the contacts and began to realize that I needed something to write with and write on, because as soon as I said, hey, this is NA-1SS, the International Space Station, is anybody out there? And the rest is history. But what I heard coming back was an alphabet soup of several dozen voices, and so I began to realize, it's like I heard, November, and I heard a 9 over here, and I had no way of picking out any one individual contact, because I never did hear the whole number. So what I learned was, I called back down to Houston on another form of communication. I said, hey, I don't even know how to decipher all this alphanumeric coming at me. And they said, just pick out what you can and respond to that person. Like if you hear a November Alpha, just respond to that part of it. And so I began to do that. I said, I heard November Alpha. And then the ham radio community is so disciplined, and so my hat's off to the ham radio community globally, so disciplined and so love of the game in their trade, that whenever I would respond to one individual, everybody else would kind of go silent and let me make contact with that radio. And then we ended up sort of just getting the positive contact, and then moving on to the next station, and it really clicked off really well after that. It became I did a YouTube video that you can just go out on YouTube and look up Doug Wheelock ham radio on the space station, and I actually recorded some of my contacts on there to show you how difficult it was to pick out the alphanumeric. But it became my favorite pastime up there. Other than looking out the window and taking pictures of the Earth, I love being on the ham radio, and I made friends worldwide.
We've got a lot of people commenting here that they have your YouTube channel in their favorites. They're already watching.
Oh, very good, very good. Yeah,
your
pull that up, and I think I start out by just giving a little commentary away from this the ham radio. And as we're coming up on a pass, I think it's a pass over the U.S. I think we had a pass coming in around between Vancouver and Seattle, all the way down out and over Cuba. Mm-hmm. And you can hear all the contacts in there. I don't know if I picked you up that night. Tom,
I don't know. We talked about 30 different days, Doug.
But I will tell you what was helpful. If we can get more, and when I get back up there, we're going to have lots of contacts again. But if you hear the station go over, what was actually helpful for me is I could hear lots of numbers in alphanumeric digits. But then I would hear from Bakersfield, California, or from Portland, Oregon, and when I heard that, I could lock onto that. I said, "I hear somebody calling from Oregon. Say again," and then everybody else would be polite and allow that person to make contact, and it seemed to be a little more organized doing it that way.
Yeah, well, you got very active on ham radio. It was almost certain every night when you passed, you were going to be on there, at that time. And I know you only do that when you're in your off hours, right? You get off hours.
Because normally we're relegated to doing it during our off hours, and then we're also on the space station. We operate the space station on Greenwich Mean Time, so we're essentially 5 hours ahead of the East Coast of the U.S. And so it usually has to be timed with when it's a good time when people are awake over in a particular continent, and it's our off time as well. So I would actually look each night during my off-duty hours to see what passes I would have, and then make sure I set a timer on my watch and go down to the ham radio when it was time to start contact.
Doug, the ham radio is there for backup, I think. That's one of the justifications for putting it in. And do you guys have any real procedures or anything written in a book that says, hey, if we lose communications, here's the procedure we go through for ham radio?
Yes, we actually do. There's a book where we actually have each continent as well, and what our emergency contacts. There are ham radio operators on each continent that have signed up with NASA to be, and I don't know how that whole sign-up works. I'm sure that anybody that's willing to man a radio station on an emergency basis, NASA would love to talk to you. But we have a book that's, if we lose all of their communication, we can open up that book and say, hey, in 10 minutes we're going to be over Australia or over Europe or over the U.S. We can look up who our emergency contact is and make contact on that channel. And they can relay. We can act as a relay station. They can act as a relay station between us and Mission Control in Houston.
Well, Doug, there's been several questions come in. Let's start taking a few questions because I think we're going to need to probably end this interview in the next 30 minutes.
Okay.
But let's start taking some questions and see where that leads us. You know. So we're looking for questions now. They'll be in here in just about 20 seconds. Now, you're here also for the Wright brothers. There's a thing with the Wright brothers.
It was really, really great. I love this area, and of course, as an aviator, it's sort of like a place you should always make a like a holy grail, like the pilgrimage. You have to make an annual pilgrimage at least once in your lifetime, I guess, to Dayton and the birthplace of aviation. And so, last night I was able to spend a little bit of time with the folks at the Engineers Club of Dayton, which is, I understand the Wright brothers were sort of founding or honorary members of that Engineers Club. So I spoke last night. We had Congressman Turner, who was, I believe, used to be the mayor of Dayton, and also he's now a U.S. congressman for this district, was there. And we talked about space, and we talked about flight, and we talked about some policy decisions and stuff that are going on. So it was a wonderful evening. Today I'm here with my friends from all over the world in the ham radio world. Tomorrow I'll be at the Air Force Museum on Wright-Patterson. We'll talking to young people and kids, actually kids of all ages, tomorrow. And then Monday I'll be up at NASA Glenn in Cleveland for National Laboratory Day. So we got a sort of a 5-day blitz of the state of Ohio this week. So,
okay, a couple questions. What's your favorite space food?
Favorite space food? Let's see. I really enjoyed most of the space food we get in packages is either it's like what you get in a military meal, those MREs. So it's either in a package that's thermal stabilized, so it's got like a shelf life of like 10 years or something, and so its flavor is questionable, or it's dehydrated and you put either hot or cold water into it and rehydrate it, and it tastes like either hot or cold plastic that it's wrapped in. So my favorite thing was when we get a resupply capsule that would come up. Just before they close the hatch on the launch pad, they throw a big, like a mesh bag full of like fresh vegetables and fruit into this bag and throw it in, close the hatch, and launch the rocket. So we'd open the hatch on the other end, and we'd have this fresh fruit. And I remember one ship came up, and I had an apple, and I felt like I gave the apple a name. And it was sort of like Tom Hanks in Castaway with Wilson. So I named my apple Wilson, and I kept that apple because I never realized how an apple smells, the aroma of an apple. I mean, normally you think about, okay, yeah, an orange has a scent, but an apple, you don't really think of an apple having that much scent. But I'll tell you what, it was a wonderful scent of the earth. I kept that in my sleep station for about 3 weeks, and I ended up eating my apple.
You didn't have any problem with the other people in here wanting your apple?
I kept my we divvied out the fruit that was in there, and I kept mine to myself, and I kept it hidden during the day so nobody else would steal my apple. So
let's talk a little.
Fresh fruit was my favorite.
Just quickly, U.S. and Russian relationships not really good right now at times, and they're threatening, or maybe they're not threatening, but there's some question about us getting up to the space station now.
Well, there are some discussions in the political echelons, which are a couple echelons above my head. But I will tell you that working and living on board the space station and working with the Russians that are now in Houston training, and our astronauts that are over in Star City, Russia, training as well, that for us it's business as usual. Of course, we can see and hear and feel the tension that's above us in the echelons in the political world, and so we're hoping that everything is resolved at that level, so it doesn't end up trickling down to us. But at the engineer and cosmonaut astronaut level, it's actually a pretty good working relationship, a relationship built on mutual trust, mutual respect for each other's heritage in the space business, and the reliability of the Soyuz vehicle, and the reliability of our systems on the space station. So it's there's obviously some tension, but we in the cosmonaut and astronaut and engineer level, we're trying to press on without letting it bother us.
Well, John's asking now with the shuttle program gone. We were just talking about this. What are you doing at NASA? I guess you're still actively involved in NASA, and we still have a way to get up there with the Soyuz.
We do, and we are dependent on the Russians right now to get to and from the space station, and we can, I am a little bit disappointed in the way that we handled the gap between U.S. Capability of launching people. I thought we could have handled that a little bit smoother, but we have what we have. The Soyuz is a very reliable vehicle. It's a little bit tighter squeeze than the space shuttle was, of course, and so we're making the best of it. We are. You may have heard in the news. We're developing our own next spaceship, a replacement to the shuttle, which is called Orion, and that'll be a vehicle that will take us out beyond the space station, beyond low Earth orbit, potentially back to the moon, to an asteroid, and onto Mars. And so we're developing that vehicle now at NASA. The first test flight will be in December of this year. So be watching. We won't have people on that one, but be watching. We're going to actually fire the Orion capsule out to 8,000 miles to get it outside of the protective belts, Van Allen belts, and so we can get some data that way. It'll be one orbit, about 4.5 hours, and then it'll splash down or land on land. And we have the capability for either, and that'll happen in December of this year. And then we've also got a very, very strong commercial base that's coming up. You've probably heard about SpaceX. Yeah. They're developing a vehicle. We already have a resupply vehicle that they're using. They're developing a crew vehicle as well. Boeing's building a crew vehicle in Sierra Nevada. So we're hoping to sort of invigorate a commercial base for servicing the space station. And while we turn that over, much like we did with aviation, back in the early days of aviation, there was government applications to flying around, hauling the mail, military applications, things like that. Of course, now that's all been turned over to a very, very strong commercial aviation world that we are experiencing now. I think it'll be a little bit slower process with space, but we're seeing the commercial companies come online now.
Well, you've already answered a couple of questions about the SpaceX and a few of the other things. Let's see. Oh, now I know you're a jack of all trades there. You have to work on everything in that space station, right? Somebody's asking, what was the most interesting job or experience you've had on there? I know you had to fix the air conditioner once, didn't you?
I had to fix the toilet several times too, and that's not the funnest thing. I know more about
commander? Were you commander when it happened?
I was commander when it happened a couple times.
And they made you fix the toilet?
Well, I fixed it myself. I figured out that was kind of handy, and
it wasn't one of those things where you were just in there and you had to fix it before somebody else came in, was it?
Well, necessity is the mother of invention. Isn't that what they say, Tom? So you get very innovative when it's time to go. So if you need to fix the potty, you need to fix the potty. So that's probably, there's a lot of, I think what the most surprising thing to me was, because of the harsh environment, both inside and outside the space station, we're bombarded with radiation. There's temperature swings that are just like incredibly, for 400 or 500 degree temperature shifts in 45 minutes. And so there's always something breaking. And so you have to find yourself up there as a little bit of MacGyverism in where you can just take what limited tools that you have and
chewing gum, a little piece of wire.
Yeah, a paper clip and a piece of chewing gum and build an airplane out of it or something.
All right. So hey, now you have actually flown on both the shuttle going up and I guess the Soyuz going up and back, right?
That's right. I flew in a shuttle, the Space Shuttle Discovery, up and back in 2007, and then the Soyuz, the Russian Soyuz, in 2010, up and back.
Now, I followed your re-entry. It was broadcast when you came down, and we watched you. Actually, I saw the chutes open, and I saw you land, and I saw you bounce.
Yes.
Tell us how scary it might be if an astronaut can get scared. I mean, how scary is it riding that Soyuz down and then hitting the ground and bouncing?
In one word, it'd be eye-watering. Would be one word to put it. It's I kind of equated coming back home in that capsule and landing. It's kind of like going over Niagara Falls in a barrel, and the barrel's on fire. So that's kind of what it's like. It's a pretty rough ride coming down through. You begin to, of course, you're deconditioned too. So you've been in weightlessness for 6 months, and so even just 1G feels heavy. So you pull between 4.5 and 5 Gs normally. Coming back. The G-axis is a little bit different than flying in an airplane. We're actually kind of laying on our backs, and so the acceleration vector is kind of through your chest. So you just feel like you have 4 or 5 of yourself sitting on top of your chest. And oh, by the way, you haven't experienced this force in 6 months, so your ribs kind of crack a little bit and snap, crackle, and pop. And then, when we came down, we hit. We bounced, we hit again, then we rolled over. So it was like we usually say in the aviation business, it was sporty.
Well, Doug, I watched them pull you 3 guys out. I think I believe you were the last one out. Is that?
I was the last one out.
Is that standard, Commander? Is the last one out, or or were they just didn't want to bring you out, or what's the deal?
I volunteered to stay in there.
Low priority.
Okay. low priority.
So
I was a low guy. I was an Army guy, so they said, let's get the Army guy out last.
So I watched them. They took I forget the lady astronaut's name.
Shannon Walker.
Shannon. I saw her take her out, and I'm sure it's a pretty intense ride back. She looked to me not real healthy. She looked like she kind of had a stroke and they had to carry her out.
Well,
the Russian, he didn't look real good, but you came out with this big smile on your face, and I was surprised. You actually reached in here and pulled out the sign that says "Hi, Mom."
I have a sign that said "Hi, Mom." Actually, I tweeted that the other day. If you go on Twitter, I'm Astro_Wheels, and I tweeted that picture the other day a couple of times actually. I've tweeted that picture of the "Hi, Mom" sign, and I remember sort of laughing after we landed. It was kind of like when you go on one of those amusement park rides, like a big, fast roller coaster that throws you for a loop, and you kind of nervously laugh after you get finished, and your buddy says to you, "Hey, you want to go again?" And you sort of nervously said, "Yeah, that sounds good," but you don't really want to go again. It's kind of like that. So.
All right, real quick, any more questions here? We got about 10 more minutes maybe or so for Doug to be on this interview, and then he's got a quick forum he's going to pop into real quick for about 10 or 15 minutes, and he'll be back with us. Does beer foam in space? Do you guys have beer up in space?
Have beer up in space?
Yeah.
No.
They don't let
just dreams of beer.
They don't let you take beer up there?
No, they don't let us take beer up there. But
wow.
I believe there has been 1 or 2 people that have dreamed about beer up there.
Have the official communications ever failed on the ISS, forcing them to go to ham gear?
We've never been forced to go to the ham radio, but we do practice and exercise communications failure, where we have to review those procedures and potentially make those contacts as well. So we do practice a lot of emergency drills on board.
Do you know if there's going to be any more push to get more ham radio use to the ground?
That's a very good question. When I came back, the other thing is social media. These are ways. I think that NASA is a great program to fly vehicles in space and have this wonderful vision, but NASA as an agency doesn't have a lot of personality, so the personality comes from the people they end up flying. And so when I came back, we didn't really have a plan, it didn't seem like, for handling social media, for people blogging and tweeting and using ham radio and such. And so when I came back, I recommended to NASA that, hey, if we really want to use these, we're reaching a segment of our population, both not only here in this country but globally, that we've never been able to reach before, because their hobby is a ham radio, working on a ham radio, and so or their hobby is living in sound bites on Twitter or something like that. Just they're not going to watch the news, they're not going to watch the NASA channel, and they're probably not going to pick up a newspaper. How do we reach out to those people too and get them on board this excitement about flying in space? And so I think you're going to see opening up a little bit more. I think we're seeing a lot more educational outreach to different schools over the ham radio. I know that some ham operators have volunteered their time with local schools to take their mobile rigs to a school site and set up a communication. If that's a new idea to you, set that up with your local schools. If you have a mobile platform that you can communicate with the space station, contact NASA and tell them, and contact those local schools and work with those our young people to make those contacts on your ham radio system.
Now, were you the first one to do social media in space, or
I was not the first one to tweet from space. I think I was probably the first one to start sending pictures and really pick up a following I think now it's getting a little more. We try to encourage everybody to get involved in social media now. I remember before I left, they said, "Hey, we want you to Twitter from space," and I said, "I don't even know what that means." And they said, "Well, Twitter, it's a form of social media, and you're limited to 140 characters." And I said, "Nah, I don't think I want to do that," because I looked at it as kind of like a sound bite. Again, like the use of someone who's not involved in ham radio, you think, well, how am I gonna? I want my mission to have. I want to reach people. It's like, well, guess what? If you pick up the ham radio mic, or if you get on Twitter, you're gonna reach a segment of society that's in other forms is unreachable for NASA, and so this is how it all kind of took off. So I finally reluctantly agreed. NASA called me and said, "We strongly and highly encourage you to build a Twitter site," and so when you work for the government, Tom, when they say we highly encourage you, you just kind of, okay, I'll form a Twitter account. So.
All right, good. All right, we've got maybe just a couple more minutes here, and then maybe we can pick up and do a little bit more of this after you come back from that forum.
Be happy to.
Let's see. There's been a lot of questions. We've covered a lot of them. They're asking how much space does a ham gear take and what type antennas. I'm not even sure
goodness.
Do you know the type?
I don't know the type antenna, but the control head is very, very small. It looks like just a very small
just a small control head.
Yes.
Yeah.
I believe you're right. It's Kenmore D700, is it? Kenwood D700.
Yep.
So it's just like a size of a radio in a car or something, the control head. So it's very, very simple. Doesn't take up much room at all.
Well, probably one last question here real quick, and then we'll have to stop this for a few minutes. But do you have a chance to call home? Talk to us about your private telephone connection. How often can you use it? How does it work?
Well, we have an IP phone, an Internet Protocol phone on board. I believe it's through the Cisco company provides that service to NASA. And so anytime we have KU coverage, KU band coverage, which is it's not continuously, it's maybe, but we can see when we have coverage. Sometimes we'll get a 5-minute chunk. We might have a 40-minute chunk. And so you can just pick those times and go into your crew station, put on your headset, and it's got a microphone on it. And you go on your laptop computer, just dial the number in. You can call any number on the surface of the Earth. And by the way, those phone calls go through a satellite and then down to Mission Control in Houston through a switchboard and then out to those landlines. So the area code of space is 281, which is the area code of Houston, Mission Control in Houston.
That's good to know. All right, look, you've got a forum that they want you to make a guest appearance for maybe 15 minutes. So I think the timing is right now. You need to get ready to go there.
That sounds good.
And
we'll come back and do some more.
All right, come on back and we'll do some more fun things. Doug,
absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. I really appreciate it. And to everybody out there listening, send your questions in, and we'll get to them we'll stack them up and get to them as we can.
All right, thanks.